The Atlanta Braves, who have spent about $81 million already this offseason, bring in their catcher. Again, Brian McCann is retired. Travis d'Arnaud signing a 2-year deal for $16 million. Now, d'Arnaud had a pretty good run with the Rays last year. He's going into his age 31 season. On the whole, though, last year, his OPS plus was only 98. That's about league average, 312 on base, 433 slugging. Overall, you see it right there. Defensive runs saved in the negative. Obviously, it's not a perfect system to rate catchers. But before I pass judgment on this thing, because it's not overwhelming me, it's a nice signing. I like it. But what do you make of it, Ken?
Fairly thin market for catchers, so that has to be considered here. And d'Arnaud was widely viewed as the best of the rest. So I like it for the Braves. They needed someone to replace McCann, as you said. He is a right-handed hitter like Tyler Flowers, so that's a little bit problematic, but Flowers has reverse splits, doesn't really hit lefties, so that should be okay. And d'Arnaud, it's a question of what you believe. Do you believe what he did with the Rays? And clearly the Braves do. And keep in mind, Alex Anthopoulos was his GM in Toronto. He's the GM who traded him to the Mets along with Noah Syndergaard for R.A. Dickey. So there's some history there between those two.
Yeah, if you can go back, it's funny when you said, what do you believe? I thought, what do you believe he slugged .485 for the Mets in 2016? Because he was a catcher that had real offensive promise. Hasn't quite happened. It's a pretty good player.
Yeah, I mean, when he's been healthy, and that's obviously going back to 2010, he's been injured in every which way. But he has been a productive player. He's averaged, per season average, about 20 home runs a year if he were to play 162 games. So for a catcher, that's pretty good. And he obviously was a big prospect at one time. But, for them to have Flowers there, who's obviously a serviceable guy who can play, I think he probably got a little too much money. But that maybe, as you say, is a thin market, so that's why. A good gamble, but I don't know if it really moves the needle that much on what we think of the Braves this year.
Well, but you need two catchers. I'll say this. I know when the Nationals last year got Kurt Suzuki, Yan Gomes, it was, you don't go out and get one catcher, you go out and get two catchers.
Yeah, I like it. I think he can hit. He's had some injuries in the past. When he's healthy, he is a force for a catcher. He was very good for Tampa last year. I know we look at his OPS plus and say it's only around 98, 99, but for Tampa, it was better than that. And I think he probably has found something, and he feels good. And I mean, it's basically 1/4 of the money that Grandal got. Obviously, he's not Grandal, but look, they've done a nice job filling some spots, and they've got the big stuff to come. They're going to get a starting pitcher, at least one, and a third baseman, and they're going to be good to go. I like what they're doing.
I'm throwing this out there because, look, there's not much news out there right now, but I'm throwing this out there. Even before any of these moves were made, I had a run of shows with Dan O'Dowd, who's a former general manager, of course, with the Rockies, but I said, why don't you just find the players you really want, right? And this goes into, real world, not just, numbers and what the guy produces. Instead of waiting around for value, and I'm going to save $500,000 and $1 million, and, his market's deflated, now we can pounce on this guy. Find the guys you want, pay market value, and grab them. They've done that with Will Smith. They got Chris Martin back, who is their own player, but also Nick Markakis, their own player. They like him. Flowers, their own player. They like him. Darren O'Day, they like him. And then they go out and strategically target. And Ken, I brought up the Cardinals in the past have struck early before. This was a few years ago where, hey, we really want this guy and this guy. It was Johnny Peralta and a few others. Let's just go early, pay the money, and now we have the roster we want. I like that philosophy by Alex Anthopoulos right now.
Well, the Braves did it last year with McCann and Donaldson, and it was a very similar strategy. And keep in mind, Joel Sherman wrote this in the New York Post a couple of days ago. Grandal was a unique player. Will Smith was a unique player. There wasn't another left-hander on the market with late-inning quality that Will Smith offers. So that is what partly drove this. But also, Brian, keep in mind, in this new world order that we're living in, general managers value players in a certain way. And in the catching market, let's take d'Arnaud out of the equation. The rest of the catching market, Chirinos, Maldonado, all of these guys, they basically see them as all similar. And this often happens now with valuations. So that is why they wait and they try to save $100,000 or $500,000 here. It is what annoys people on the player's side because it's not conspiratorial, it's not collusion, but it is something that is kind of groupthink. So that's what happens.
That was initial kind of sabermetric theory in that if you don't get this player, you can approximate him with this player. However, now that everybody is thinking along the same lines, now, no, I like this player more. Why? Even if it's I'm not going all clubhouse chemistry on
That's what should happen.
But it's right. And you target, we like this guy. Why? Get him. That's a real human being, a player. We want to bring that guy in.